Hey guys, K Kim here. Hope you guys are relaxing this evening. And well, this is gonna be a quick video. I thought it was kind of fun. I was just kind of looking at Apple and just see possibly what we could expect next day or next week. And obviously there are enough data that is has with enough data that we have so far that there is a bullish signal. But one thing I really wanted to see was, well, what are the possible, immediate possible outcome might be, right? So, and I just kind of looking through different stuff. And this is where I found is that something that kind of stood out to me is that we have this is what we call ADX here, and ADX is basically a momentum indicator, and what we are seeing is here's what we're seeing right here. We can see that the ADX, we've never been this low since its lifetime, pretty much. We can see that when was the last time we came down this low? About 10 level. We have not ever touched that low, but there's only one time we actually touched it, which was November 11th or so, November 9th or something like that. So let's zoom out or zoom in and see what that was like. So first, at a glance at it, you will think, well, this is a time. You see, that was then when we had the lowest in ADX. But thing about that is, at that time, this thing came down. So if you just look quick glance at it, it may be that the conclusion. I mean, obviously, we can't just look at ADX. This is just one indicator, and that I don't trade off of indicator, but this could be a reference point. So basically, last time when we hit that low, and this is just looking at things very, very simple manner. Last time we hit that low, we came down at least for about a week or two. So we got into a bearish, kind of a bearish intermediate or minor term before this thing really took off. So the simple conclusion might be that, well, that might happen just because it happened here. Well, obviously, I didn't end there. So there's my quest started happening. So I wanted to first of all not only just look at the ADX, but I also wanted to see the market condition at that time. So if this was a November 8th, I want to see, does this just really happen because with the supply and demand on the Apple and all of that, or fundamental, or technical side, or fear, or is it possibly some market being weak? Because that could be also another factor of it, is that if the broad market being weak, then there's certain, it's gonna shake certain people out to sell their shares. So what I did was, well, obviously November 8, 2011, I went back to Spider and see. And obviously today we're bullish in the market as of today, but I wanted to see where we're at in November 11. So let's go to see Spider November 11, where the Spider was at, so we can kind of get an idea. Oh, came too far. There. Right here. So this was a November 11th. You can see on my little thing there. Oh, it's not moving because I'm like, oh, there you go. So November 11th, November 10th, November 9th. So 9th, it came down pretty hard and it tanked. You see that? That's gonna feel like we haven't even, when was the last time we seen something like that? This year. I mean, we're in an amazingly bullish market, right? But anyway, so this was a November 9th, 2011. Let's go back to ADX here, November 9th, 2011. And so if I go back right there, this was a coming down point right here. So it held up. You can see that it was holding up right here, and ADX was pretty low, around 10 there, and that was November 8th, 2011. Next day, November 9th. Next day, November 10th, and then we kept coming down. But you see that the circumstance was different because November 8, 9, 10, 11 was right here. November 8, tanked November 9th, and Apple kept tanking, trying to bounce 10, 11, 12, 13, 14, 15. So you can see that, you know, the circumstance was different. The environment that Apple was in at that time was that the market condition was very erratic and a lot of fear still with after this huge crash there. And so we kind of look, we're seeing some kind of an after effect, kind of a fearful. We trying to get out, but then people just still not really committed. So if you look back, let me look at today. Even this kind of action right here. Let's see. We haven't really seen any of that. When was the last time we've seen any kind of fast sell-off like that? Look at this. This whole year we haven't seen anything like that. So even this move here, that's not quite like what we saw in November 2011. This This right here, no, that wasn't a sell-off. This was just kind of dripping lower, and that one was a fast sell-off. Here, let me go back. So you got an idea. It's very, very important right here. This is a pretty fast sell-off. This is gonna feel like market crash. People probably yelling out market crash, get the heck out of the way, all of that, just crazy stuff. But this didn't feel like a market crash. This didn't feel like either. We felt like we're possibly getting into a correction, but did not feel like a panic, like oh my goodness kind of thing, right? So let's go back to our little ADX analysis there. So it's not, when we look at that, it's not right to just say, well, we can't just conclude that just because last time when ADX is at this level, because every circumstance today, here, let me see, let's look at today's circumstance. So ADX is that alone, this is where Apple is at. And today's circumstances, well, what do you know? We're not at a level coming down. And if I think if this is not what we saw today and we're here, obviously then we're, what I'm saying, we're not going to, really not, this is that we could really say that, this thing is, Apple could come down. And obviously I wouldn't even think about going long in a market that's bearish. Obviously I don't want to counter trend either. So that's why I don't go long when the market is bearish. But we can see that obviously we're in this just amazingly bullish uptrend. And we had this huge gap up and follow through. And looks like this thing want to come all the way up here. Let's go back to ADX here. So we cannot just do a simple analysis and say, well, last time when we did this, we came down. So because here, and I'm sure a lot of people I don't think any people even look at ADX that much, except you guys. And we can't just conclude that it's coming down here. Here's another thing I was doing analysis and found out, and another thing was also it's very important when you're doing analysis, especially looking at an indicator and things like that. You kind of also want to look at the previous the peak point and what was the reaction before that happened. So to do that is you see that they were peaked here. And this is where we peaked, and then we came down, right? And then this thing came down before we found well, obviously this thing came down there, and then this thing started moving up there. So kind of endorsing this move that the ADX says that we're finding some momentum until this thing reversed. And obviously because we're so low at this point, it was going to move up or down. It was going to move upside anyway. But here, what I want to see is a different thing about that is basically is this. Right here is right here. It was at the top of its peak before this coming down action. When ADX started to losing completely interest of this move. Basically when ADX comes down, it's like I'm not interested. There's no momentum. It's just dripping lower kind of thing. The difference about that is you see this peak right here? Where that peak was created right here. Interesting, right? So obviously this peak was created at the top and coming down. This peak was created at the bottom going up. So you can see that when we, if we just do a simple analysis, one could just conclude that, hey, Last time we did that, so this thing came down, man, so it's probably gonna do that. But obviously I've just shown you that we looked at Spider, the circumstance was different. We're back here at Apple was in a different environment. It was a bear market, a lot of fear in the overall market. But here we're in a bull market. People are very, very optimistic. Buy the dippers and buy and hold and all those things. Just been really working out. So we're completely in a different setting today. Not only that, the previous peaks of ADX were coming off of the highs and kind of losing momentum. Right? So we could say that, what the ADX is telling us is that, well, we peaked out and we couldn't move any higher and we're kind of losing momentum. So we dripping lower. What this saying is, though, we peaked at the bottom and we moved up. So it's not dripping lower. It's like we're holding up. Obviously in stock market, this is why I said all the time, anything can happen. Right? And people have to understand that anything goes. You can have a perfect bull analysis and next day this thing just tanks, right? But with the data that is given to us, all we can do is analyze and give some probability so what could happen in the near future. So given, just doing this pretty intensive ADX research, I would have to assume, because I don't think I've ever gone this deep way of looking at ADX, and I do look at ADX a lot, and I love ADX, and that's why ADX is in one of my main charting. You can see that this is one of my main charting template there because I use ADX a lot to just gauge how much is going to how much room to move, and we foresaw the forecast that IBM oversold bounce there. Obviously with the market going higher, that thing bounced. But even if the market continued higher, we would have seen some kind of bounce anyway with the ADX telling us that. So what's the conclusion here with ADX analysis on Apple? Well, here's a conclusion. The conclusion is what ADX telling us is where ADX is at its maximum level. So what the ADX is telling us that we're going to make a move very, very quickly here. We're about to make a move. And, ADX doesn't know for sure if it's going to come down, it's going to roll over, or it's going to go higher. But when we did other analysis like let me call it environment analysis, and obviously we just said that back here was more of a bear market, a lot of fear in the broad market, so we came down. But here we're in a bullish market, so there's higher probability that wind of the broad market could align this and to maybe ignite something here to jumpstart. So that's a 1+ point for bullish argument there. And second one, also the ADX what ADX saw was that, well, the previous peak right here, what this tells us that we couldn't able to move higher anymore. And so we start dripping lower, thus losing momentum to the upside. What this was telling right here is that we came down, but we couldn't push lower. So then we moved up higher. Though we couldn't find much momentum on ADX, but it's holding up well. Given the fact that ADX was just completely nonchalant about this, just look at this, ADX just came straight down, this thing holding up well, obviously. Because when ADX coming down, this thing's starting to move sideways here. So it's pretty similar action. But the thing about that is this was peaked out, couldn't move anywhere, so stripped lower. And so I guess my whole thing about this is, and I wanted to put this little analysis out there, I guess for educational purposes, and just maybe how you can use these indicators and do multiple studies, is that you can go and look at the market sentiment and see what when you're looking at these indicators and see what was that when you're backtesting and whatnot, and what was the last time, what was the market condition like, because that's very important to see what the market, because market condition is going to be a huge aspect of certain pullbacks and runs, believe it or not, it is. And so here's my own conclusion. Conclusion is this: there's a higher probability that I think the Apple, if we can get above 493 or so here tomorrow and close above that, there's a high probability we'll close above 510. Now that market is bullish. I think that win can really kind of help Apple buyers to find a little bit more comfortable setting. It will be a comfortable. It doesn't mean just because the market's up, like all of a sudden Apple's gonna go 700. Doesn't mean that. It's just that there's certain people like wanting to get into a market and they might be thinking about going long on the Apple. But then if the market is in a correctional phase, they just not gonna think about that yet. I don't feel good about it, market crash and all that. But if the market is bullish, those people who thought about going long on Apple, they might feel a little bit more comfortable to do so. So all that analysis, it counts for something. So my final conclusion is that the looking bullish there. ADX is very just maximum level at low, and so we are probably gonna find some momentum either to the downside or upside. But I think we have to give favor to the bulls on Apple because of the fact that we have been making higher lows there and we are above all the moving averages. And let me go to that Apple real quick. And then also one thing I thought of looked at was that look at right here. You can see that how 100 SMA, 200 are about to go, and this is a long-term thing. I mean, this right here, that's gonna help us like next few days. That's maybe next several months or so. But that's a plus. And another thing I really like, I like is that we're above 10, 20 MA and 50 MA still, and we really held up very, very well. I know we came down here, but I mean, given the fact that Spider, did this plunge, and Apple, when was the last time market plunge and Apple was able to hold up there? So again, with the data given to me as of today, to me looks bullish. ADX is very, very well reset now, completely rest. This thing is ready to move. So I think if we do move to the upside, I think there might be some big move that we can expect, and it might not a huge move like this, like a huge pop, but even a grind higher action. I welcome that. I welcome that kind of move, And so there you have it. Apple and ADX. Have a good night.